Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 704 High School Highlight Podcast here on Bay Hackle Sports. I'm Jeff Taylor. That's Jack Taylor. And, of course, the podcast brought to you by the Downer Law Firm, Charlotte's hometown legal team. If you're ever injured or in an accident, make sure you get with the Downer Law Firm. They'll take care of you. And, of course, we appreciate them and what they do for Bay Hackle sports and high school sports in our area. So we're going to change it up a little bit. Instead of having a guest, we got Jack here. And what we decided to do and maybe go forward from here is we'll always have guests on, but we're also going to just kind of bring everybody up to date on the high school scene. What's going on, because it's been a flurry of activity over the last couple of weeks and even this week. And I guess for me, the biggest thing is, and it is high school football and it revolves around it, the Keep Pounding High School Classic.
Yeah.
Obviously, they made the big announcement this past week about the games that will be played. And we say games.
Yeah, it's huge.
Because last year it was one.
Yeah.
And I think from the success, why not go to two?
I mean, last year was an instant classic with Providence Day and Northwestern, the
Right.
North and South Carolina battles, the private schools, the South Carolina schools. And so this year they wanted to put more of the public schools in there.
Right.
And I think it was an awesome opportunity for these two teams to go head-to-head. Providence Day and Weddington, I mean, that's going to be spectacular. The two state champions.
Right.
It's going to be different than people are expecting because obviously Providence Day lost a lot of guys.
I think they'll be fine, though.
They'll be fine. Look at Chad Greer and his guys. They are able to have next man up and go right into it. But it's just going to be, Weddington has kept a lot of their team intact.
Right.
But to see the two state champions facing off,
To me, it's brilliant. I
Yeah.
mean, you're taking the private schools and the public schools and going, let's decide and have it. So I think it's brilliant. And then the other game, obviously, you got Indy and Myers Park. And to me, and I stressed it all last year when we did our, the blitz and everything else, the young coaches in the area. And you talk about DJ McFadden and what he's done there at Independence, building the culture he has, played under Tom Knotts, which I'm sure he always talks about Coach Knotts and the impact he made, and, playing there and, winning state championships and wanting to build that culture. He has certainly done that at Independence.
absolutely. I mean, the things that they've done in the last few years to go from where they were to then having the Tri-County champions,
Right.
to then being able to get to where they need to be in that final game against Butler as well.
Right.
I mean, it was ridiculous to see the impact he's had so far, and you see that directly correlating with Myers Park and Chris James.
Right. I was going to talk about him, too. Yeah, last year was his first year. And to see what he did there and the staff he's built, is pretty amazing. But, same thing. The interesting part, forget the Providence Day and Weddington for a minute. When you talk about Indy and Myers Park, though, just the history of those two schools and what they mean to high school football in the Charlotte area, that's big, just the historical aspect.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the best receivers, some of the best, players to come out of the Charlotte area and go on to the NFL
Right.
came out of Myers Park. We talk about the different big names that have come from that area, and it has been huge to see. So they have a history embedded in the area. Now, I know with Indy and with Coach McFadden, he might have wanted to keep that North Carolina versus South Carolina matchup going from last year and play his head coach in Dutch Fork. That would have been the only matchup.
Well, actually, in the press conference, and we didn't play it or whatever, but what he said was, he goes, I want another shot at Weddington.
Yeah.
So he was hoping it'd be Indy and Weddington.
Yeah.
Because he wouldn't mind a shot at that. But I'm sure it's going to be great ball games. And actually, here's some sound from the press conference from the other day, both coaches and players. Take a listen.
And this always says something about the type of program you got when you're asked to play in these type of games right here. I think we've earned it. I think our kids earned it. We got a good opponent here, my man Chris James in Myers Park.
I think our kids have worked really hard for this particular opportunity. When you sit up here and look at the panel of organizations, programs, coaches, I think it says a lot about the city of Charlotte.
A tremendous blessing, I think, to be associated with Providence Day for me personally, and then for our school community to be part of this. I think last year was just an overwhelmingly positive experience for our entire community. We had tremendous participation from students, families, alumni. It's an incredible experience and opportunity.
I think it's awesome for our players, our coaches. 99% of them aren't ever going to play in an NFL stadium, so to give them the opportunity to play in one is, and to coach in one is really, really special for these guys.
I'm so excited. I mean, this is a great experience for me. I've never been able to do this, so I think it's a great opportunity, and we're playing versus obviously a good opponent. So, I'm just really excited for the opportunity.
It's a great opportunity for me, teammates, the Independence community as a whole, and just ready to go.
I feel like it's going to be a great matchup. The defending state champs for the 4A, public school and private school. So they have some great players, we have great players, so it's going to be a phenomenal matchup.
I got a lot of friends over there at Providence Day. So, obviously we've been talking back and forth now early, and just can't wait to go out there and compete against them.
So obviously, two big matchups, and I think another interesting thing that Coach McFadden talked about was he was kind of wishing he was the late game. I mean, Thursday, August 22nd, he's going to play at 4 o'clock in Bank of America Stadium.
Yeah.
And if you've ever been there, in the summer or even early September, it can get hot.
Absolutely. It's interesting that they're moving it to that Thursday as
I
opposed
know.
to having it on that Saturday. Because it was going up against the Turf King Classic, which
Right.
we can't wait to see what those matchups are going to be.
That'll be interesting.
But now it's going up against the Kickoff Classic on
Right.
that Thursday at Memorial as well.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what teams go into that matchup. That has always been a doubleheader. And
I've
I
heard
imagine
of
it'll
a
be
few,
so again.
teams, but I'm not going to spill the beans yet.
And then you got a triple header for that Turf Kings. Now
Right.
Turf Kings going to be the only games on that Saturday.
I wish there was some way they could spread all three of them out.
Yeah.
Do Thursday, or do they have games Friday yet?
They do. They will.
Okay, right,
So
okay, so right.
that'd be what you do is you have one of the tournaments be on that Friday. It's
Do Thursday,
interesting
Friday, Saturday.
because you don't want to take away from the first Friday night game for some of those teams. If you're going to do
Right.
it, you might as well have it on a Thursday, Saturday. But that would be my thought process going forward: is make one of these, make them not all have to compete with each other. So put one of them on a Friday.
Right. So at the press conference, and you didn't know about this, we hadn't talked about it, but at the press conference, we kind of all had finished asking questions, and they go, does anybody else have any questions? And Thomas Davis raised his hand.
Yeah.
And he asked flat out, he turned around and looked at all of us,
Yeah.
and he goes, because none of y'all have the guts to ask it, I will. And he asked about the NIL deal,
Really? Did he?
the private versus the public.
Interesting.
And he wanted all their opinions. So you had, Coach Capone, you had Coach James, Coach McFadden,
Yeah.
and Coach Greer right in the middle. And Coach Greer was the first one to talk. And he was, obviously it's with the private schools. He, supports it. But he did say, hey, if there's things going on in the public schools, these kids deserve it too.
Yeah.
It was interesting to hear the take of, Coach Capone and Coach James. And I know Coach McFadden had talked about it a couple times, at least, on social media. So I was waiting to hear his answer. And it was just very interesting to hear them talk. But, Coach McFadden was just like, I just want an equal chance.
Yeah.
We're sitting up here, with Coach Greer, and, we just want an equal chance at the end of the day. And I get it. And I know that I think you did a story on the NIL, especially when they did the public versus the private and stuff. We haven't had the chance to talk. People who've watched the podcast know that I struggle with it. I don't like it. I don't like it for college, period, but I get it, but especially for high school. What were your thoughts on the NIL as a whole? And I think for me, it comes down to regulation. I don't think we regulate it enough. And I think if they could get that part of it right, it'd be a better move.
Yeah, I think that what the NCISAA is doing is similar to what the 30 some odd organizations across the country are doing.
Right.
And I think that when people hear NIL, they think branding rights, or they think making money off your name in a video game.
Right.
And in the college level, yes, that is what it's going to be. But at high school, it's really not going to be that much. And the thing is, if you look at it, and Chad Greer, when we talked, had an interesting perspective because his sons, not Will Greer,
Right.
but Nash and Hayes, have been benefiting off of their name, image, and likeness since they were in high school. If you remember, they were both big on Vine at the time.
Right.
And so in social media, in the world of streaming, in the world of Twitch, the world of social media, you can make money off of your name and image and likeness
Right.
in so many ways, but you have to have a following. So in high school, it's different for, the kid at, Cuthbertson or Coxmill as opposed to
Right.
the kid at Providence Day. I mean, David Sanders,
Well-
is one of the top players in the country, or you've got the junior at Charlotte, who's
Right.
one of the top softball players in the country.
Right.
They'll have followings.
Right.
So that's what these companies are going to kind of lodge onto. I think public schools should absolutely have it. And from what I understand, the deals that the NCISA put together and the NCHSAA put together are very similar.
Right.
It was just a matter of approval at the top. And I think, the kids that are in private school, they don't necessarily, it's not going to, be a fast pass to get into these private schools. They're not going to say, okay, we can offer you this money, let's get you right in here. They're still going to have to go through all the red tape. But I do think the public school kids deserve it if they are able to. And as long as it doesn't take away from how they got that opportunity.
Right.
And that the schools
Agreed.
don't have any way of touching it. I mean, the biggest thing is not having collectives.
Right.
Private schools can't have
Absolutely.
collectives, and they can't touch it whatsoever.
Right.
And every deal that goes through has to go through the NCISAA. So,
Well, Coach Greer said something funny. He goes, colleges have always had NIL. It's just been called something else.
yeah, I mean, it has. It's true.
I mean, at the end of the day, yeah. And I thought the interesting part was when he was talking about, the kid's name at Providence Day, the lineman.
David Sanders.
Yeah. He just said, David right now has got a sweatshirt.
Yeah. I mean, that's all it's going to be.
That's all it is right now. So don't make a mountain out of a molehill.
I mean, booster clubs have existed in high school,
Right,
and that
exactly.
has been a advantage for some of the more affluent high schools. You have more money coming into your booster programs. You can go straight into the gear. So these, companies aren't going to come in and, buy out gear for all their teams. A lot of them already have deals with these places anyway. So it's interesting, and I think it will be a much slower impact than people realize. And I think you'll see maybe one or two kids at the high school level utilize it, just like you've seen. I mean, the kids that are going into college right now that are signing, very little of them have NIL deals going into college. Right. So I think it's a different scenario.
Yep. Okay, switch gears. Let's talk some hardwoods. So we got high school basketball, and we're definitely coming to the end of the public schools, but the private schools, they're in the middle of their tournament. Yeah. And so kind of a big Saturday coming up when we talk about the NCIS-AA. Always so hard to say. But real quick, 1A, United Faith Christian Academy. On a roll. They're the number 1 seed. So they play Saturday, I do believe. So best of luck to them. They've always had a good team. They've always been strong, always been consistent. The 4A got some interesting stuff. The 1 seed Cannon is going to take on Cary Academy, and I saw Cary Academy on Thursday night beating out Country Day, and I can tell you that team has some size, has some speed. I don't know if they can hang with Cannon, although I haven't had a chance to see Cannon.
Cannon has got a lot of firepower. And the thing that is interesting when it comes to, we talk about football versus basketball, for private schools in football, there's obviously a bit of a disparity. Providence Day has kind of been up at the top, and the other teams still kick around, and it's not always super lopsided. Right. But especially when you get to the postseason, it kind of starts to lean. But in basketball, it is very even keeled. Right. A lot of these, talent. Carmel Christian, Charlotte Latin, Covenant Day. Right. These teams are all, it's shootouts every night. Right. So I saw Cannon up against Covenant Day. Covenant Day had a big win to get over top of Cannon to take the division at the time. Right. And so seeing Cannon in person, they were running right to their spot.
How are they on the inside?
On the inside,
because Cary has a kid named Wyatt DeGraff, who I saw him play. I don't know how tall he is. He's huge, but he dominated the boards. He dominated the middle. So I don't know what Cannon has on the inside.
It's going to be a bit of a non-factor because they don't miss shots. Okay. They are very surgical with their shot selection. Right. I saw them run the same play 4 times to the corner for a 3-pointer, and it went in every time. And so if they can control the perimeter like they continue to do, it will be an easy continuation for them.
I know that Country Day was tough to see their season end. They played hard the other night or whatever, but they got a kid, a freshman, Preston Smith. That kid, he can ball out. He hit a buzzer beater in the third quarter, baseline falling out of bounds, just throwing up, hit nothing but net. But so there's that. The 4 and 5 seed, and you've seen, I think both of them, maybe Carmel Christian taking on Providence Day. I think you saw Providence Day play this week, correct? For them, they're consistent. That's all I can say is they're just consistent.
I think that they've always been a superpower in the area as far as basketball goes. So to see them in the 4 seed is different. To see the kind of, emergence of Cannon back to what they want to be. Carmel has some competition that they haven't really faced in a while. And it's going to be interesting because Providence Day.
2 middle seeds.
Because Providence Day has been, I don't want to say up and down because that's not necessarily accurate in terms of their season with the amount of games that they've had. But seeing them at home against Raven Gap, having to travel up from Georgia, they at one point were.
That wasn't as close as the football game, was it?
No, it was not. At one point, they were up by 2 to Raven Gap. And then by the end of the fourth quarter, or the end of the third quarter, they had a 13-point lead. And they controlled that and kept it for the rest of the game. And even the coach said, we didn't play as well as we could have. He was like, we were lackadaisical. Ron Johnson was like, yeah, we could do a lot better in that regard. So they've got some big guys and some crafty work inside the paint. They're very, very fluid when they drive to the basket. So it'll be their first trip, though, on the road in this playoffs. Going to Carmel Christian is tough.
Tough, yeah.
It is a huge stadium. And I remember I saw that game last year, and it was a big matchup. So I'll be very interested to see. It'll be a close one, and I think it could come down to, the final few possessions.
It's just execute. We just got to execute. We didn't do that today, and at least for the most part, we didn't do that today. So hopefully we'll be a little bit better on Saturday.
Another game, Covenant Day taking on Ravenscroft. Covenant Day's a 2 seed. They've been a quiet 2 seed. You don't seem to hear a whole lot about them.
I think that if you see them play, you hear about them and reverberates
Okay.
as you keep going. I
Got
mean,
it.
they are impressive, and they've got a lot of talent. They've got a kid who's committed to App State for
Okay.
basketball, and he is huge. He is a ginormous presence inside the paint. He puts up 20 points
Really?
a night.
Wow.
He had a few double-doubles this season, so
Wow.
he will be a big presence. If you lock him down, that'll change things a little bit, but I think that it won't be you won't be surprised by the teams that move on to the semifinals.
Got it.
In that division.
So for everybody out there, the championship games then are, I think, next Friday and Saturday. I don't know the exact dates or whatever. We'll get those to you, but we're actually showing those on Bay Heckle Sports. We're streaming all the private school championship games. So we'll get that info out. Make sure you get a chance to see all those guys in action as we do that in a live stream. That one of the cool things we get to do here at Bay Heckle Sports. Then, of course, public schools. A couple things just to talk about real quick. 3A, is anybody going to beat Central Cabarrus?
No, I mean, they haven't lost a game.
55-0.
Yeah.
23-0 this year, perfect in the conference. I think it's the Daniel twins. And I know that I think we did a story on them. John Treach did. I don't know what their margin of victory has been, but if I look through Max Preps a little bit just to see some of the scores, they were pretty dominant.
Yeah, they know they know how to play their ball.
They know
game,
who they are,
and they don't waver from it.
Right.
And it is intimidating to go up against the two of them. Very, very rarely do you see something like that where you have these two twins. Brothers is one thing, but twins is another. I saw in West Virginia when I was covering high school basketball there was a set of twins that they were the exact same playing with each other, and they were lights out each week, and it was hard. It's hard to defend because you go for one of them, the other one goes off. You go for the other one goes off. So to have that two-headed dragon
right.
to try to take on is darn near impossible. So I don't think anyone is going to stand a chance against them.
Right.
I think they're going to roll through for another title.
As long as they keep our heads on straight too. Sometimes when you're that good, it's hard to keep your head on straight.
Yeah, you might.
Kudos to the coach. I mean, when you're talking about teenage boys, head can swell.
Absolutely. And so
Gotta
they
keep
might
even keel.
they might get the punch in the mouth that they need.
Right.
But I wouldn't be counting on it.
They would counterpunch real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
They would. So that's 3. 4A, so many good teams, but we just want to talk about the game that's being played here at the end as the season wraps up, and that's Indy and Butler. Both 10-1 in the conference, both tied for. So this is it for the 4A Southwestern Conference title. Do they just battle it out in every sport? Is it just like that is the rivalry, whether it's football, basketball, that's it?
Yeah, I mean, they're dominant. Because a lot of those players are playing for both teams. Those guys that they saw on the gridiron,
right?
They're seen on the hardwood too.
Right.
So yeah, that is what it is. I mean, they just have their athletic programs continue to go just off the walls, no matter what sport it is. And so it's going to be very, very interesting to see who takes. I mean, it's gotten to the point where they need to have the 51 Cup or something like that, where they just tally up all of the different sports.
That's a good idea.
Like they have the Palmetto Cup, for South Carolina, Clemson. They just need to have it where they tally up all the different sporting events and see who won in each matchup, because it comes down to them more often than not.
Right. Got it. Cool. Hey, you are listening to the 704 High School Highlight Podcast, watching it also, hopefully. Brought to you by the Downer Law Firm. Make sure you get with them. They are Charlotte's hometown legal team. If you're injured or in an accident, make sure you check out the Downer Law Firm. So let's switch gears again real quick. And I'm learning more about it, and I'm learning how many just good ones we have in our area, and that is wrestling. State championships are going on as we speak. And as I got to talk to some of the schools, and you were at the regionals, were you amazed at just how many people were there and the excitement and just the numbers? Just tell me how crazy that was.
I was walking into.
That was at Mallard Creek?
No, it was at Mooresville.
Mooresville, right.
Going into their gym in Mooresville, I was actually really shocked to see just the sheer amount of people. I guess regionals, there was over 200 wrestlers, I want to say, that were there representing almost every team in the area for the 4A Western regionals. Not even the 4A,
right.
Just the 4A Western. And it was a packed gym going on for hours, and there was matches continuously. And it is such a grueling sport for the stamina that you have to have in that moment. I mean, the amount of time it takes to pin your guy, to get them down and done and have the match concluded. I mean, you're looking at 10-minute matches.
Right.
Just for one, and then you got to go on. You get about a 5-minute break, and then you go on to the next one. And the parents were into it. They're watching, 500 guys. The coaches are sitting right there. It is a constantly moving energy out
Right.
there. So it was interesting to see. And you look at these kids, and a lot of them don't look like they would be able to play on any of their respective football teams for the
right.
most part. I mean, if
When
you
you
look
get
at
that
the height
120
of the-
pounds and stuff, yeah.
But they know how to use their weight, and they know how to use their abilities to throw their guy down, and it was very, very eye-opening to see. There's a lot of talent around the area.
You know, like, I mean, I looked at, as I was doing some stuff on social the other day, kind of just putting stuff out, you know, Huff had 8 guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mooresville had a huge number. You know, Providence, I think, had 1, but still, Palisades, East Mech, South Mech, the list goes on and on. I was just stunned at that. And you know, to have just that many, like I said, yeah. And then I've seen some images today. I think it's in Raleigh, is the state championship. But I've seen some images today, and the place is sold out. And it's like, I don't know, they had like literally, they did like a panoramic shot, and I don't know how many matches they had going on at one time.
I know at the regionals they had at least 4 matches going on.
This
at the
was
same
like
time.
12 or 15.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll get some information. We'll be able to, you know, put out some stuff on social media and let you know how that goes. Maybe we'll have something up on Bayhackle Sports come Monday about how that all went. And best of luck to all those guys in states. Because, you know, I knew wrestlers growing up in high school, and I've talked to some now. It's grueling. The energy that they have to put in, the weight control. You know, I've seen kids that would, you know, run outside with plastic bags on 5 minutes before their match because they were 8 ounces over.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I think it's not, that was way back in the day.
Yeah.
Where it was a little,
Probably changed a little bit.
it's changed a little bit. It was a little too crazy. So, like I said, best of luck to them. Hey, so we're almost done with the winter sports, and then we head over into the spring sports. And it's still weird that baseball is a spring sport because I'm so used to being summer. But baseball's almost here. And I had the chance to go out to Charlotte Christian. And just a very unique story. And I don't know if you know it or the folks out there know it. But so in January of last year, their head coach died of cancer, Greg Simmons. And, you know, that was pretty much a couple months before their season started. And, you know, 733 games, 16 state titles, there for over 30 years as a coach. And then they had a gentleman by the name of Reed Frank come in and take over and coach last year. So I went out and had a chance to talk to him actually earlier this week, and I had a chance to talk to the coach about, you know, where the team stood right now. Here's what he had to say about Coach Simmons and the legacy he left behind.
You know, everything within our program has his fingerprints all over it, from the facility to even a lot of the drills we do day to day and a lot of things we communicate to our guys. So I played for him, so he instilled a lot of that in me, and all that continues to trickle down to our players in the program today.
And so, you know, and talking to the players too there, and just to be thrown into a situation where a couple of months before season starts, a coach of 30 years dies and you get put into that spot. I don't even know how you wrap your mind around it and get your kids to play as well as they did last year, because they played pretty well.
You find, I think, at that kind of situation, a lot of those coaches will tell you, you just kind of let the river run its course.
Right.
And those kids, especially the ones that had so much, and especially in the private school communities, they have seen that coach or known of that coach their entire
Since
lives. Their entire lives. So they almost play for themselves and for him without needing any sort of steering. And the most you do is just make sure that they stay, you know, on track and they stay on base and what they're supposed to be doing. So I think that's where you kind of have to try to attack that from. So I think that's what you're going to see as it goes along, and you've seen it in different areas. But I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if they are able to make a run and they're, you know, dedicating it to him, because what else do you do?
Right. So we're just about a week or two away from baseball getting started, softball, track. What else do we have?
Then you'll have
soccer. Yep. So, you know, congrats to all the kids that are getting ready to play there, and obviously we'll keep up with them. And whatever sport they're playing, we'll, of course, at Bayhackle Sports have you covered for that. So let's wrap it up with some young ladies, the Palisade Puma cheerleaders. And here's the interesting part. I had a chance to go talk with them and do a story with them. You're talking about year 2 of a school. And, you know, Coach Dawn, you know, I talked to her, and so last year was the first year. This is the second year. 2 schools that went into one. You know, what she had to do to kind of get a culture together and all of that. It's pretty amazing to do that. So kudos to her. And I just wanted you to take a look at the story we put together for Palisades as they headed off to Disney about a week or so ago. Take a look. 2 years ago, the doors opened at Palisades High School, bringing together students who had attended 2 other schools previously. That provided some challenges for everyone, including cheer coach Dawn Holmes.
So a lot of people thought that it was crazy to come in here and start the foundation because you have to start a whole culture. And the thing is, we're a relief school, right? So it was coming from one culture and me trying to do something different that's a different style here in Charlotte.
Now the cheerleaders are a sisterhood doing something they love.
Absolutely.
I'd say it's a sisterhood as well.
What makes it that way?
I mean, JV and varsity practice together. We're not separate. We just did our pep rally together. We all share the same band and everything where we communicate. So it's definitely, we're all on the same page. It doesn't feel like anybody's inferior to anyone else.
That hard work has paid off as they are now headed to the National High School Cheerleading Championship at Disney.
It's cool to be going to Disney. Actually, I've never been to Disney myself, so it's going to be an experience that I'm excited for. I can't wait to just be in a big house with all my friends, and then also be able to compete.
And while excited for the competition, it's also bittersweet as it's time to say goodbye to the seniors.
Well, it's amazing. So this is our first year having a senior class. So last year being juniors, and now to watch them, there's 12. And so many of them, they offer leadership and the mentorship.
I feel like also because we're a new team, it gives us more motivation to set the standards, because tonight, senior night, and we were able to create our own traditions because we're the first graduating class.
At Palisades in Disney, they made it past the first round. I think they had a fall or something, so they didn't make it to the next round. But for a number of those girls, when I talked to them, it was senior night at Palisades when I went out there or whatever. I know the competition was important, but this is the second year that they've gone. So you're talking 2 years of existence, and you go to the national finals 2 years in a row. That's pretty impressive.
It's wild, and I will tell anyone who gets hired over at Ballantyne Ridge to take a look at what happened this last 2 years of Palisades in their athletic department, because they have set a precedent for how you are able to compete and be competitive in such a short time frame. And so it'll be interesting to see. We've done all these stories of Palisades. Ballantyne Ridge will be the next one as that school opens up.
Congratulations to those ladies. It was just a cool story to just be able to talk to them, and just the sisterhood they formed is pretty cool. So congrats to them. So, hey, that is it for this episode of the 704 High School Highlight Podcast. Of course, wherever you watch, listen, make sure you subscribe, like, comment. Am I doing it all right? I always get so wrapped up. But the one thing we want to push also is we are trying to grow our YouTube channel for Bay Hackle Sports. So head on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe. We're just about 500. My goal is to get us to 1,000 before the summer. That might be a big push, but we're going to try. We're going to get there, but of course we'll get there with your help. So, you know what? We're going to wrap up basketball. Spring sports are coming. Make sure you stay with Bay Hackle Sports for all your high school coverage. We want to be your home for high school sports. We've done a good job of it. And until next time, Jack, thanks. Appreciate it. Until next time, have a great week.